My name is Suze Allen, and I'm the host of Memoir Church, and we're here the first Sunday of every month. It's very exciting. Thank you all for coming. The reason that I do this every month is because I'm a firm believer in the power of shared stories. And I feel like memoir is just one of the most beautiful genres as people curate and tell their stories of their past and how they live and how they get through this world. And what I really love about memoir, it's not about what happened to the person, it's about what it meant to them and what they did with it. It's really about meaning, memoir. And I think that you'll see today, Rene's piece is so beautiful. And I remember when I first met Rene, of course, I was calling her Rene, because if you see her name, it looks like Rene. And she goes, I'm going to have to stop you right there for a minute. I am not mispronouncing it. It is Rene Allen. I am thrilled that she has joined us today. And I think that what I'm very excited about is that we have created a space so that we can understand story and we can hear and understand what somebody has gone through. And when we understand that, we understand ourselves better. And I think that, Salman Rushdie, I always tend to quote him, this beautiful, beautiful quote, we need stories. We need stories to understand ourselves. We are the only creature that does this unusual thing of telling each other stories in order to try and understand the kind of creature that we are. When a child is born, the first thing the child requires is safety and love. The next thing that the child asks for is, tell me a story. And that's what we're going to, that's what's going to happen here today. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate you being here. And without further ado, I'm going to have a little conversation with Rene. So I'm going to add her in with me here. Hi, Rene Allen. How
Hello,
are you?
Suze. Good.
It's good to see you. You know, um, I always like to start with, you're a children's book author. You have two children's books. Do you want to do a plug for those?
Oh, sure. The first one was Measuring Day. Excuse me. Story about what happens when we are measured by criteria that's just too big for who we are, a giant's measuring stick, and what do you do then? And the second one, which is really my favorite, Angel's Very Big Bag of Rocks. What happens when all of our remembered offenses are turned into rocks that we have to lug around with us every day. So
Ah, I love it. And where would somebody get those books if they wanted them?
they're both on Amazon with a little bit of a hassle. We're trying to get that straightened out right now.
You are not alone. Why memoir? Why did you choose to write your memoir?
So when I was practicing and had to leave my practice, I always felt like I shortchanged my patients. I really didn't get a chance to tell them the whole story. And I had a great practice. I had great patients. And I always felt like I needed to finish the story with them. And this has just kind of been on my mind all these years. And then it also helped me finish my own story. I
Hmm.
mean, it let me get to a place where I can look back without strong emotions. I can be more rational. I don't just see the bad, I see the good as well. So it's been a very therapeutic process. And it's also been a documentation of some things, what it was like to be a doctor, what it was like to be a young mother with children and going through a residency program. I mean, just so kind of a document as well.
Nice. And I know for me, when I write from memoir, I always get a new perspective on what's happened to me and how I feel about it, and a new understanding of the relationships that I've had. Did any of that happen to you when you were in the process of the writing?
So it's still happening, Suze. You know how it, that's one of the nice things about working with Suze is that she always tells you, no, go a little deeper. Look for a little bit more. So yes.
Yes, I get in a lot of trouble for that. You made me write this, and I didn't want to. When it came to Rene was going to skip right over her residency and her memoir, and I was like, you can't. You can't. You started before the residency, and it's in your title about.
And it was a great idea to skip over it because it's been the hardest thing to write I've ever done. So anyway.
Good job. That's going to
Yeah,
stand out.
yeah,
In all
yeah,
your
yeah.
reviews, it's going to say the part about the residency was really
Uh-huh.
profound. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Right.
I think, in retrospect, are you happy that you did for the
To be
book?
dis to be decided. For the
Uh,
book, probably. For myself, there's a reason we don't stir up old memories, and yet a residency is how I reached a very important goal that we'll talk about. Well, maybe not in what I read today, but anyway, it was important. It is an important part of my evolution in becoming a physician. So yes, you
mhm.
win this one.
I don't need to win. Um, so what do you feel? Talk a little bit about where you started your book and the device of a writing room that you use in it.
So one of the things that will come out is that I really started as a writer when I was like 7 or 8 years old. And then as I went to medical school, went through my pre-med classes, I just turned all of that stuff off. When I was practicing, I sort of rejuvenated it and I started going to taking classes at Pima Community College with Meg Files, who was the director of the program. I owe a lot to her. But so that's really when the memoir started, because that's really when I was going through some of the things that were happening. And it turns out that we had just moved into a 4-bedroom house, and I have 4 sons. And so that meant that there were 3 extra bedrooms, and they all wanted their own room. And they wouldn't stop fighting about it, so I decided to paint it pink, and I put in pink carpet, and that the fighting stopped, because what boy wants to sleep in a pink bedroom? That was one of my more genius moves. But I got tired of pink, and so we put in a new floor, took out the pink carpet, and we put in a pergo floor. And they called it purgatory, but in a heartbeat that morphed into purgatory, the real purgatory. And I thought, wow, what a great place to name a room where I write. You have to deal with the past. It's just so where I'm writing now is actually Purgatory 2.0, and I'm trying to figure out a way to introduce that into the book. But for most of the book, I'm writing this thing in Purgatory, and Purgatory actually becomes a character in the book, you could say. Don't you think, Suze?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's an ingenious way to fashion the book, to have a writer writing about writing while they're writing. It's very meta. It's very multi-layered.
Oh, that's me, meta.
Yes, and that is quite genius. I really appreciate that. Um, where did how did you decide where to start your book? You start when you're a young child.
So actually, I start with my interviews for getting into medical school, because I figured if I use that as a device, I could flash back to my childhood and then move forward, because they were so linked together. And so for the first part of the book, that is the way I proceed: interview, flashback, interview, flashback, trying to tell this story, and then this part ends with actually what happens relative to my getting into medical school. So I intentionally did it that way because it just seemed very doable as a way to tell the story.
Mm. And it's quite beautiful. Your first memory that you use as a flashback, but it's a flashback, but often in real time. What is your, how old were you for?
So I got I got the idea that I was smart when I was in 8th grade. Up until then, abused, bullied, critical mom, overweight, you name it, I had it. But a teacher in 8th grade, I made straight A's. And I said, I'm going to read about this. I said, I must be smart. And he goes, you are smart. And at that moment, I realized that, hey, maybe I could do more than just be dumb and fat and all of those things that are associated with being overweight.
Hmm.
So that was a very important moment in my life.
Mm.
The power of a teacher who
I
really
was just
gets
going
it.
to say, teachers, man, they can make you or break you. I'm so glad somebody gave you the courage and the insight that, yeah, you are smart. Well, beautiful. Um, so I guess you should just read and let us hear
Okay.
your beautiful words, and I'm going to take myself out of here. And thank
Okay.
you. Uh, Beautiful.
So I just wanted to take a minute and thank Suze for this opportunity. At my age, she's put me back on the learning curve, which has kind of been an exciting situation. And Margie might understand a little bit of what this is like. And then I also want to talk to my family and some friends who are probably signed in. Two things. One, I really appreciate their support over the years. I'm not going to tell you how many years I've been at this, but it's been a long time. And they've been around for all of it. But the other thing I want to tell them is this is the beginning of the story. And you may not like where it ends, but I believe in happy endings. So have hope and hang in there. And here we go. The name of my memoir is I Don't Want to Take Care of Your Body, a Doctor's Story. Part 1. Sometimes I am stunned at my capacity as a 9-year-old to understand my entrapment and escape it. Chapter 1, June 23rd, 2025, 10:45 p.m., Mesa. There now, it is recorded, the time, date, and place of tonight's endeavor. I am barefoot, wearing a white cotton nightgown, and seated in my desk chair in front of my Dell All-in-One. The ceiling fan is on, joined by the hum of a desk fan because it is summer in Arizona with all that implies. Sweat, agitation, restless sleep without covers. Rosie is on my bed washing herself. Josephus just discovered his kibble bowl and the library is full. Spooky is in the basement because she and Rosie do not get along and I don't want to be awakened by an abominable cat howl in the middle of the night. We have coyotes here. Since the cats are in, I'm not worried about them right now. Yes, I am one of those people. The ones who are so obsessive they are compelled to write. Without jotting down a few let's get real thoughts now and then, I can't navigate the space of 24 hours without sliding into a mind daze and losing myself. So, my memoir. Such ostentatious words, my memoir. But who else's would I write? I've been at this for so many years, it has become burdensome. Iterations litter my computer's desktop. I've deleted entire chapters, added chapters, and changed tenses, searching for the compelling magic of a well-told tale. This time around, I will firmly attach myself to notations of place, date, and time, a physical representation of what I want emotionally, a fixed, safe place from which to tell my story. So I begin again. Chapter 2. Why do you want to be a doctor? Barely taller than I am, Horace Lindblom looks so much like Sigmund Freud with his well-trimmed goatee and glasses. Instantly, I am on guard. There are some things this pharmacology professor at the University of Arizona College of Medicine will never know about me. He is not only short, but delicately boned. Do I weigh more than you, Lindblom? I take my designated seat at a small table, the chair without his suit coat draped over the back. We are in a windowless conference room in the new medical school in Tucson. Partially erased biochemistry equations are on a green chalkboard behind his head. My response echoes the coaching of other pre-med students. Because I love science and want to work with people. But it is humbug. The truth is, I want to study literature and art and write essays about photographs that tell powerful stories. But how can I tell him this when I'm being interviewed for medical school and only 1 in 4 applicants are accepted, and I don't want to sound like an idiot? I'm a 21-year-old woman who elbowed her way to this interview. In 1970, only 6% of United States physicians are female. The stakes are high. Had I been totally open with Lindblom, I would have told him I decided to be a doctor when I was 14. When I was so desperate, I thought a physician's white coat would solve all my problems. Chapter 3. It is the last day of 8th grade at East Mesa Junior High School. The final bell has rung. Outside, students rush to their buses in oppressive afternoon heat. In my room, however, Mr. Hassan passes out report cards. I am keenly aware that next year I will attend high school. I am mostly a B student with a smattering of A's. My father rewards A's with dollar bills. Each grading period, my siblings make more than I do because they get all A's. Holding my breath, I look at my report card. Stunned, I look again. Straight A's. For the first time in my life, I make straight A's. I must be smart, I whisper. Mr. Hassan hears me. You are smart, he says, and immediately my life changes. The year is 1963, the year I turn 14 and wonder if I can be more than the large size of my body. It is the year I am inspired by Taylor Caldwell's Dear and Glorious Physician. I read it 3 times, finding the golden-haired, beloved and charitable physician, St. Luke, to be an exemplar. 1963 is the year the bestseller Fascinating Womanhood by Helen Andelin is published, and Mother tells me to read it. Turning the pages, I hope for a remarkable transformation. Quote, femininity is a gentle, tender quality found in a woman's appearance, manner, and actions, and her general attitude. No other quality has so much appeal to men, for it is such a direct contrast to his own strong and firm masculinity. This contrast, when brought to his attention, causes him to feel manly, and this realization of his own masculinity is one of the most enjoyable sensations he can experience. Aside, how was this ever a bestseller? Quote, the extremely feminine woman is charming to men, but the woman who is completely lacking in it may even be repulsive to men. End quote. At 14, I am a miserable, overweight adolescent with impossibly straight hair and acne, desperately in need of a fairy godmother. A fascinating woman? Not in 5 lifetimes. 1963 is the year I teach myself to type and transcribe medical records for my maternal uncle Talmage, a family practitioner. Like St. Luke, he is golden-haired, beloved, and despite typing errors, tells me I do a wonderful job as my fingers fly over the IBM Selectric keys. My parents adore Tam. It is the year I ride the coattails of a physician's white coat into a magical dream. I'm going to be a doctor, I tell my family and friends. That fat girl might amount to something after all. Dazzled, Mother changes the way she treats me. We call a truce about the chubette dresses, which I have outgrown. A new store Molly's carries larger sized attractive clothing. She is interested in my school activities and how I am moving toward my goal, and is less critical of my size. Friends are impressed. Suddenly, I am perceived as smart and ambitious. Despite the gnawing uncertainty that medical school isn't what I want, when I say I'm going to be a doctor, there are so many perks in the way I am treated, I can't unsay it. Chapter 4. Lindbaum studies me over the top of his glasses. This Freudian look-alike wants more. What do I tell you, Lindbaum? I have lit every thought that is contrary to what I think he wants to hear, including the voice that whispers, "You really don't want medical school." My eyes feel dry from the drive to Tucson from Mesa with the windows down. My car has no air conditioning. I blink and rest my hands on the table. Not everything I tell Lindblom is false. I do enjoy science. To meet my pre-med requirements, I'm a chemistry major at Arizona State University, although a part of me yearns to major in English. But a career in medicine demands sacrifice, so I shut my eyes to courses about Shakespeare and contemporary poets and creative writing. The lie is when I say I want to work with people. I know how to pretend, to be friendly, to laugh, to act like I enjoy people, but I don't. I'm awkward in groups and would rather find a spot on the periphery of life where I can sit under a shady tree with a pencil and a notepad, distance from the brouhaha of being someone I am not. But I do not permit this weakness. I am borrowing against my future, the person I will become, if only I can get into medical school. When I submit my application, the most desirable jobs for women are movie actresses and airline stewardesses. Failing that, women are secretaries, teachers, and nurses. An unmarried woman over 25 because of a defect of former personality is an old maid. I can't see myself as a secretary, teacher, or nurse, and old maidhood shadows my future. I want a career that is quietly ostentatious and powerful, where I'm respected and can earn enough to support myself. If being a doctor means working with people, I'll figure out a way to do it, but it will be through the camouflage of a physician's white coat. A fifth-generation member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I have been taught how to make beans and bread. I'm encouraged to be self-reliant, get an education, and be responsible to family, church, and country. Marriage and family are top priorities. The Vietnam War rages in Southeast Asia. Oral contraceptives revolutionize women's lives and fuel the feminist movement. Smack in the middle of history's hottest bid for women's liberation, I want to be traditional, but believe it to be as impossible as flying to the moon on a broomstick. If I am certain about one thing, it is that I am different, never your girl next door or anywhere. I want Lindblom to buy into my ruse. He puts his left hand on the table, strokes a wide gold wedding band on his ring finger with his thumb, and waits for an answer. June 26, 2025, 5:28 a.m. I've started the washing machine and dryer, fed the cats, and given them clean water. Today I'm wearing a blue nightgown with white hydrangeas. Putting on day clothes implies I take myself seriously as a person who gets things done, so I'd like to retool this habit of pajamas until 10 a.m., but I resist. I'm very comfortable in this free-flowing cotton nightie. But that may be the crux of my writing issues. Rarely is memoir comfortable. Because I am the one who assigns meaning, chapter 6. Because I am the one who assigns meaning to what happens to me. Because I'm sentient, capable of perception, processing raw data into neat columns of sense. My story is uniquely mine. Talk to my family, and each will have his or her own slant. This is an important principle. Truth is unique to the individual in which it resides. But the developmental pitfall in becoming fully sentient is that it doesn't happen all at once. A child's perception is not an adult's. As an elementary school teacher before she married, surely Mother knew this, that children are not little adults. Had she actualized it, perhaps she would have acted differently, and I would have grown up differently, liking myself more, not resenting her need for me to change something else about myself to win her love. I look at my early childhood the way I do a young sow with her first litter, a willing heart but inadequate lactation, her piglets scrambling for a teat, the runt pushed aside. Once I asked Mother why I have no memory of being touched in a loving way, no tender whispers of I love you at bedtimes, or her gently brushing my hair from my eyes. I love my baby, she said. You've been on your own since you were 18 months old. The best I can say of those early years is that none of us got all we needed, but we all got enough to grow. Chapter 7. As the oldest child of 6, I can't recall a time when I don't have siblings, when I am Mother's only child and surely adored. I have pictures of her holding me, propped on her hip, a chubby infant wearing a ridiculous sunbonnet, smiling. Mother is smiling too, but even in those pictures, I seem overly large for her, as if holding me is a heavy burden. Early in my life, she attempts to mold me into her notions of what I should be and how I should look. So she puts me on a diet when I am 2 because she thinks my loving food is bad and that I eat too much. I get 1 egg for breakfast. A single egg has 80 calories, 5 grams of fat, and 6 grams of protein. Carbs are negligible. According to the National Institute of Health, an active 2-year-old needs 1,000 to 1,200 calories a day. There is no joy in only 1 egg for breakfast. But Mother is inconsistent about food, principles often becoming subordinate to the urgency of her children's needs. In 1952, when I am 3, we moved from Mesa to Higley, where my father buys a farm and grows cotton, alfalfa, and other crops in the year-long growing season. When I am 4, I fall off a haystack. Frightened, I run howling inside. I want a rockabye. Mother is rocking my baby sister Michelle, who is finally asleep after crying all night with an earache. My brother Mark, 18 months younger than I, plays with a toy truck at her feet. Shh, she says sharply, don't wake the baby. There is a line to Mother's lap and I am at the end. But I fell off the haystack. You are a big girl and big girls don't cry. I want a rockabye, please. She reaches into her apron pocket and pulls out a red sucker wrapped in cellophane. You are a big girl. If you stop crying, you can have this sucker. To this day, I love red things, cherry lifesavers, radio flyer wagons, prickly pear jelly that glows in the sunlight like stained glass cathedral windows. Among the most treacherous of my human foibles is the smell and taste and color of things, and the act of incorporating them into myself temporarily releases me from my need for love. Chapter 8. Do mothers realize how powerful they are, that their offhand comments and actions carry the weight of absolute truth, that their truth influences their children even when they are grown, until they choose to embark on that perilous journey of self-discovery? Every morning, Mother ties heavy, ugly corrective saddle oxfords on my feet with double ties so I can't undo them. If you don't point your toe straight, people will think you are crippled, she says. Do you want that? Now remember to turn your toe out. We go to the doctor twice a year. He looks at the way my leg swings, how my toe points in. Each time he gives Mother a prescription for the corrective shoes. The problem is in her hip, he says. She was born with it. I want shoes like my baby sister's patent leather Mary Jane's with flowers on the toes. I fuss and argue with Mother, but she never buys me pretty shoes. I try hard to point my toe straight because if I fix my foot, I won't have to wear the ugly shoes. But I can barely do it because the muscles in my leg are tight and don't want to turn, and it hurts. More, Mom says, not just straight, but out. Push your toe out. I concentrate on my feet, toes out. She believes she is operating in my best interests, and perhaps she is. Walking with straight toes would be better than my pigeon toe swing. She is convinced if I know what is wrong with me, I will fix it through willpower and tenacity. Why wouldn't I? But willpower fixes are setups for failure. I try harder. I think about each step until I see my tricycle on the back porch and immediately forget about my foot and go outside. On Sunday, she ties on the despised saddle lock first, then pushes my feet off her lap. Now watch your sister while I dress Mark for church, and don't tear your dress. You are so hard on your clothes, you should have been a boy. Michelle sits on a blanket on the floor playing with a ball. She has wavy blonde hair and big eyes that were almost blue. Mine, mother says, are the color of weak root beer, and my hair is defiantly straight. Michelle wears her Mary Janes. Mark walks into the living room already dressed for church in a white shirt and navy shorts. He picks up Michelle's ball and throws it in her face. Immediately she howls. What did you do to her? Mother runs in from the bedroom, her voice sharp. Mark hit her in the face with the ball. I told you to watch her. She picks up the baby, who immediately stops crying. Mother fingers her aqua-colored dress with baby tucks and lace. She touches Michelle's shoes. So feminine. She smiles and moves to the rocker. Patty cake, she coos, and Michelle laughs. I watch this fuming. Jesus says I am supposed to love my sister, but another emotion churns inside me. I am confused. I want to love her, but mother prefers her because she wears pretty shoes and is feminine with her blonde curly hair and big Gerber baby eyes, while I, with my turned-in toe saddle locks, was in exuberance and told my mother I should have been a boy. At 4, I understand perfectly what feminine means. My sister is my enemy, and I want to smash her. There is no relief for the gnawing pain in my stomach until I go to the kitchen. Standing on my tiptoes, I reach a piece of mother's white store-bought bread and go outside to eat it. I love doughy store-bought bread, how it lumps in my mouth and is smooth, unlike the crumbly whole wheat homemade bread we usually eat. Having mother's affection is far more important than pointing my toes straight. I'm not crippled. I can walk, I can run. But her love is all about patent leather Mary Janes with flowers at the toe. Her ideas about gender and how I look become mine. I can't eat what I want because I will get fat. I should have been a boy. I walk like I am crippled. What I have the potential to become is slowly being trampled by what I believe I already am. Chapter 9. Since I want to look professional for my medical school interviews, I wear a Sunday dress, a red knit with a white sailor collar, and black satin bow that mother says makes me look thinner. She has always selected and purchased my clothing. I can't think of one item I've chosen on my own. In the warm October weather, I pull my dark blonde hair up, but stray ends fall around my face and neck. Lindblom sits rigidly across from me, military posture, his hands absolutely still on the table. I am self-conscious about my size and feel extraordinarily visible next to Lindblom, much the way I felt as a child, sitting next to mother in church when she leaned my direction and whispered, that heavy-set woman over there will look better if her clothes were looser. Fat women should wear looser clothing so you don't see their rolls. She nodded toward another woman. Fat women have pretty faces because they don't have wrinkles. Her voice was conspiratorial as she surveyed the congregation, picking out the fat people, coloring them conspicuous and desirable. I knew she was obtusely talking about me. So ingrained was her commentary about fat women, I had a secret fear that if I ever got on a Ferris wheel, I would break it. Lindblom taps his index finger on my file. He asks me about my pre-med coursework, first at Brigham Young University, then at Arizona State, where I'm currently enrolled. As I formulate an answer, suddenly he says, I see you aren't married. What would you do about a career if you married and had a family? In 1970, the question is not unexpected. I have prepared a response, but I know it is the weakest part of my interview. I carry a burden inside me, a stone so heavy and embarrassing I can never tell him marriage and family have about a 1% chance in my future. The only other person who knows my secret is mother, but we never talk about it. So I protect it, keeping it deep inside, pretending I am normal, all the while waiting for the inevitable. Chapter 10. My mother, Fernie Schill, was so thin as a child she drank cream from the day's milking. A late bloomer, she went through puberty at 17 and always thought her legs were too skinny. Her parents, Otto and Marguerite, had 5 daughters, ping, 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 of which Fernie was the third. She was born after the older daughter, Elizabeth, also known as Sister, died from what was probably leukemia. 2 sons followed the 5 girls, Otto Jr. and Tam, both of whom became physicians. A last daughter died shortly after birth from congenital anomalies. They lived in Lehi, a Mormon pioneer community squeezed between the more prosperous Mesa to the south and the Salt River Indian Reservation on the north. To residents of both Mesa and Lehi, the small community had the stigma of being the other side of the tracks. Mother painted an idyllic picture of her childhood, sitting on a ditch bank with her best friend, who was her cousin and also named Fern, eating freshly picked figs, their legs dangling in the water. And in many ways, her life was good. Otto was principal of the local elementary school. They had more resources than many families in Lehi, even to the point of buying shoes for impoverished children at his school. But a bad investment and the Great Depression took a toll. Mother only opened up to me one time about the ills of her childhood, and that was with one word: deprivation. Her face turned red. She struggled not to cry and left the room. Childhood scars are scars of powerlessness. Wounded adults overcompensate. In my childhood home, we had 3 refrigerators and 2 freezers, sometimes 1 or 2 more, but never less. Our pantry was filled with canned goods and toilet paper. Taught by the church to be ready for emergencies with a year's worth of food, Mother embraced the doctrine of emergency preparedness. I never worried about having enough to eat. What was it like for Fernie, as one of 4 surviving daughters competing for their mother's time, for limited resources, for emotional support, for emotionally and financially stretched parents? What was she like as a child? One story about her is mythical. On a day when she was little more than a toddler, her mother watches her standing in knee-high grass, her hands cupped around a baby bird, her arms held high over her head because a cat sits in front of her, his eyes intent on the bird. She wears underpants made from flour sacking, and her hair is white blonde, straight and raggedly cut. The cat wants the bird. He stretches and swats at her hands. She stands on her tiptoes but isn't tall enough. The cat swats again. Since she can't reach any higher, she pops the bird into her mouth. Mother rescued birds her entire life, hundreds of them. She loved birds and she loved the idea of rescue and restoration. Wherever we lived, she took in wounded and abandoned animals, including a turtle, a pig, a raccoon, parrots, doves, kittens, dogs, chickens, goats, and particularly baby mockingbirds blown from their nests during summer storms, which she raised on a mixture of raw hamburger, rice pablum, and boiled egg. I always wondered if I was one of her wounded creatures.
Oh,
Bravo,
Rene,
bravo.
I haven't heard.
Thank you.
I haven't heard that in a long time.
you get the grandma
I
approval.
like that.
Yay, that's the best.